Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at the 2025 Trek Dual Sport 2 Gen 5. This is the 5th generation of Trek's highly popular dual sport hybrid, and we're going to go into the features and designs that makes this Trek a true dual sport bike in the hybrid lineup. So if this kind of thing's interesting to you, stick around, and at the end, we'll let you know what it weighs. Talking Trek Dual Sport. So this is the Dual Sport 2, which in Trek's lineup means that this is the middle model. Trek makes a Dual Sport 1, which I'll have linked down in the description below and just above you right now. And that bike is their least expensive way into this segment of the hybrid genre, as well as Trek then has a Dual Sport 3 to top it all off. So when looking at this bike, the point of a dual sport style hybrid is that this bike can do more than just ride on pavement. So it can ride on the pavement here and on some grass or some dirt trails, or even going up to, say, a park where you might be on some fire roads, which are a mix of gravel and dirt. And how they do that is they run these wide 50 millimeter wide tires that have a smooth center line and progressive knobs towards the side where you start to get a little extra grip. The other thing that they're doing is they're running a 650B wheel. And what that is that's essentially a 27.5-inch diameter wheel. And that is a mountain bike wheel size with kind of this crossover tire. A 50 millimeter wide tire is almost as wide as what you get on a modern mountain bike, but still much smoother and much faster than a mountain bike tire. And so Trek is trying to combine that off-road capability of the wheel and tire setup with the positioning of what they'd have on, say, their FX hybrid, which is a fitness style road and commuter hybrid. So you're getting a mix of those two things together to have a bike that can really tackle whatever you might want to do. And you would look at a bike like this if, say, you wanted to be able to go for a ride out on those fire roads and be able to, have something durable maybe to commute on where you're not worried about potholes, but you don't want to commit to lugging around the weight and the extra capacity of a mountain bike. And one of the places where they're saving weight, well, that's in the front end. So if you see here, the fork, which is this piece, comes down from your head tube, down, connects to the wheel. That fork, well, it's rigid and it's made out of aluminum. So we can see the alloy welds there. And rigid means there's no suspension in here. In a traditional mountain bike, you'd have a shock up front, which would definitely help save you on some of the larger, harder hits. And on an FX bike or that fitness style hybrid, you would have this rigid fork, but because you're running road bike diameter wheels and narrower tires, you don't have nearly as much tire sidewall to absorb the bumps as you go over. So it's a good compromise and allows them to save a couple of pounds on the front end of the bike. Speaking of saving weight, with the Dual Sport 2, this being in the middle of the lineup, it's really giving you both slightly better parts than the base model bike, but also a bit better value than, say, that Dual Sport 3. So on this one, the fork on the bike is aluminum. If we were looking at the Dual Sport 1, the least expensive flavor, well, that one has a steel fork. And if you step up to the Dual Sport 3, the fork itself becomes carbon fiber, which is more expensive and it dampens some additional vibrations. And that's the reason it's coming on that higher level bike. The other place that's really going to change between this one and, say, that Dual Sport 1, well, that's in the shifting and the brake setup. So let's dive in. Here on our shifter, we've got a 1 through 9 speed on the right-hand side. Thumb button pushes us to an easier gear. Index finger down there goes to harder gear. And on the left-hand side, you'll see there's no shifter. Now, the reason for that, well, that's because the left-hand side would normally control the front derailleur, but you'll see this bike has no derailleur to shift between gears. And that's because this is a 1x crankset. So 1x just means that we have a single ring up front, and all of the shifting is being done in the back cassette. So the cassette is this piece that runs through a pretty wide range on this Shimano Q's system. And so here we're going to have an 11-tooth on the small ring all the way up to a 46 tooth. And that's going to give you a super wide gear range, considering this bike has a front chainring size of 40 teeth, which means that your gear ratio is going to be way less than 1-to-1, so it's still going to be able to climb hills pretty well. And a 4011 Outback should have enough speed for most riders. And the reason you'd want to go to this one bias style system, when it sounds almost counterintuitive that the Trek Dual Sport 1 would have 2 up front and then 8 out back, so 16 gears. So why would you go from 16 to 9? Well, that's simplicity, similar gear range, so you're not giving up much, and it's allowing the bike to shift quite a bit better through this Shimano Q's drivetrain. So the Q's drivetrain is a hybrid style drivetrain that comes from their mountain bike lineup, so you get some of that mountain bike capacity that we've seen before, drives through, really simple system. And that's where it brings us to that other piece that I said is different between this one and that Dual Sport 1, is that our brakes, well, these Tektro brakes are hydraulic. And so on the Dual Sport 1, you would have a cable. Instead here, we've got hydraulic fluid that's going through to these 2-piston brake calipers. So much like your car, you've got hydraulic fluid in here. It's clamping down on this disc brake rotor, which is 160 millimeters both on the front and the rear, giving you quite a bit of stopping power and control. And that's especially useful when the Dual Sport series has a really high weight capacity. So a Dual Sport 2 can carry 300 pounds of rider and gear combined. And so that means you could use this bike for some bike commuting. You could use this bike if you're on the heavier side of things. It's going to have the durability and the capability. So it needs good brakes to be able to slow it down, as well as some good double-walled aluminum wheels from Bontrager. These are the connection wheels, which are laced up on quick release hubs through 32-hole stainless steel spokes. So those are going to come together to be nice and durable. We also have a threaded bottom bracket, which simply means that it's the most durable way of putting it together. And then up front, we're going to be able to carry that gear because we've got rack mounts on the front end of the bike. So we've got a way to be able to add racks or bags on the side of the fork. In the inside of the frame, we also have mounts underneath our top tube. So we've got these 3 mounts here, which are going to allow a frame bag to go inside. You've got 2 water bottle mounts. Even on the size small that we have here, we've got both water mounts. And then out back, we're going to have ourselves a rack mount setup. So we've got eyelets there, eyelets here, and down there to be able to run a rack on the back of the bike and carry the gear that we want. The other nice thing, and this is kind of a small thing, but I love it, is if you do want to have a kickstand, it's got a spot for you to be able to add a kickstand with this direct mount setup out back. Lastly, of course, we're fender compatible, we're cafe lock compatible, so really a dual bike for just about anything that you'd want to be doing. The last thing I want to mention is this frame is the same on the Dual Sport 1, 2, and 3. And all 3 of them have really slick internal cable routing. So we've got internal cable routing going through the head tube of the bike, makes for a slick and clean look, which also allows you to be able to take this bike and mount it up on a rack, put it on the back of your car without worrying about cables getting snagged on the frame. Well, now that we've taken a look at all of that, let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. The actual weight of the Trek Dual Sport 2 comes in and weighs 27.12 pounds, which, to put that in perspective, is nearly 3 pounds lighter than what you'd get on that Dual Sport 1. So the question is, with this Dual Sport 2 coming in at $899 and the Dual Sport 1 being $749, is that worth it for the weight savings? Thanks so much for joining me to check out the 2025 Trek Dual Sport 2 Gen 5. Go ahead and leave me your thoughts down in the comment section below. Ask any questions that you have, and I'll do my best to get back to you.